Hi, welcome to Freedom Rocks. I'm Max Kessler. Last episode, we showed you some speakers, including myself, from a planning meeting to plan some protests against the so-called New York SAFE Act. Well, here's one such protest.
All right. My name is Gia Arnold. I'm the Orleans County leader of the New York Revolution. Doug Kolf is the Monroe County leader. I have roots in Monroe County. I was born in Rochester, raised in Rochester. I recently moved out into Holly 3 years ago. So I'm a wife, a mother, and a proud gun owner, and I will not hesitate to protect my family or my Constitution. On Wednesday morning, I was asked to organize this event with the help of Doug Kolf and Miss Mary Gamer Skelly, whoever she is.
Right here. I'm handing out the tickets.
I'm pleased to say how well it has turned out. We were hoping for a little bit more support, but that's all right. I know that there are a lot of people out here, and I want to point out that there's women, and there's not just white men here, because the news likes to portray that there's strictly white men here. So if you're here and you're a woman or not white, please make some noise. We are also here today because on January 16, 2013, President Barack Obama issued 23 executive actions against the Second Amendment constitutional right to bear arms. He did this without the consent of Congress, which therefore violates the foundation of the Constitution, the very foundation of our country. America has come together across the country today to speak out against these actions. We will protect our Second Amendment right so that we may continue to defend ourselves and our families, especially from tyranny in our government. We must not overlook a very personal reason we are also all here. On January 15th, 2013, our Governor Andrew Cuomo passed the New York SAFE Act that does not leave me feeling very safe. With blatant disregard to our Constitution, the New York State Legislature has imposed on our constitutional right to bear arms. Let it be known that we will not comply with this cowardly excuse of a law. We will not allow law-abiding citizens to be turned into criminals. And once again, thank you for coming, and I'm going to pass it on to the professionals. First, we've got Mr. Paul Ruth with the Orleans County Tea Party.
Well, I'm not quite a professional, but I do represent Scope in a manner of speaking. I am on the state board. I'm also the organizer of the Orleans County Tea Party, as well as the coordinator for that group at this point in time. I'm also a Orleans County Vice Chair for the New York State Conservative Party. How many of you opted out this past week?
Woo!
Okay. You know why you opted out?
Privacy.
No, you opted out because the state said, hey, we made a mistake. The state recognized that they had erred and released
Can't hear you.
the names and information of everybody in a database that could be accessed by anybody. Anybody who can hack the computer could access that information. What they're doing right now, they're trying to correct that. What they're also trying to do is trying to get you to comply. They're trying to, what Andrew Cuomo wants to do is he wants to be able to say, look, I got 30,000 or 40,000 or 50,000 or however many people it is that opted out. They must be all for this law. How many of you are for the SAFE law?
No!
I call it the UN, the unsafe law.
Amen.
On September 28th, we're going to have a bus, actually a bunch of buses, and we're also going to have a rally, protest, whatever, in Albany, at the Capitol building, outside. I believe it's across the way from, on the east side, actually, towards the river. The west side apparently is closed down right now. We have a Scope website. If anybody's interested in going to it, I've passed out some stuff. If you didn't get one, get in touch with me and I can get you one of those membership forms. And that does have a website, scopeny.org. Go there. If you need information on Second Amendment issues, if you need information on what Scope has been doing, if you need information on anything related in New York State, go to that Scope website. If you need information about who the board of directors are in the state for Scope, that's where it is. Any information. It's all there. I almost forgot. For my But for a Colorado state representative, I'm going to blow my rape whistle.
That'll work.
I'm going to see how fast the cop will come. With the opt-out, basically what they're saying is that you have joined an organization in New York State, a pistol permit organization. Pistol permits, according to Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, are unconstitutional censorships or prior restraints.
Absolutely.
What they also said is, if you are forced to abide by one of those, you may actually ignore it and engage with impunity and the right to keep and bear your arms. This was the First Amendment thing, but remember, Heller said that the Second Amendment is also an individual right, so it has to apply to the Second Amendment as well. And I do thank this gentleman for holding this for me. Also, a couple of years prior to that was a Supreme Court decision called Walker versus Birmingham. In the Walker versus Birmingham case, what the Supreme Court decided was that you don't have to pursue the remedy all the way to the Supreme Court. But if you do have to pursue the remedy all the way to the Supreme Court, then there's a problem in our government. And I think there's a problem in our government because we've already, through scope, been involved in a permit process lawsuit from downstate. We've given them about $5,000 so far. Who knows whether we'll give them more. It depends on how many people donate to our legal fund and how much money they donate. But that issue is going to be going to the Supreme Court because the Second Circuit Court decided against us. Actually against these two people who brought the suit. One thing I want everybody to understand is that with this new law, they're going to be looking for our actions and what we do. What we have to do is we have to starve the state. If the state can't get any money, if they get so little money they can't do anything, then they're going to be in trouble. It's going to affect our local governments too, our county governments and things like that, because what I'm going to suggest is that if you want to buy a new car pretty soon, or an old used car, if you have a car that's running, don't do it. Keep that car running. Do the best you can to keep it running, because every penny, if you buy a brand new truck right now, $30,000, you're looking at $2,400 split between the state and the county.
Right.
That's a lot of money when you consider 30 or 40 or 50,000 trucks or a million trucks being bought in New York State. If one person out of 18 buys a truck every year in New York State, that's a million every year. So you got to starve the state that way. Also, gas, cigarettes, alcohol, vehicles, large appliances, clothing, vacations, all those things are taxed. If you go to stay in a hotel in New York State, you pay an 11% tax that goes directly to the state. If you go to the emergency room or you stay in a hospital bed, you're going to pay 9% to the state. So try to stay out of those hospitals. They're going to try to kill you anyways. More people die from hospitalizations and the bad things that they do there, the errors they make, than die from guns every year, murders with guns. So be sure to make sure that you do that.
Wow, people really are furious. I hate to interrupt, but we really need to go to a break. Stay tuned.
Did you know Freedom Rocks has swag? You can help stimulate the economy and show how much you like Freedom Rocks at the same time. We've got t-shirts for men and women. We've got coffee mugs and beer steins. We've got food and beverage thermoses. You can get your own Freedom Rocks swag with the show logo, as seen in the opening title of the show, right here at our Cafe Press shop. That's cafepress.com/freedomrocks.
Welcome back to Freedom Rocks. We now return to protest over the so-called New York SAFE Act.
Fellow New Yorkers, my name is Peterson Vasquez, and I'm a board member, an educational advocate, and a speaker for the Frederick Douglass Foundation of New York. Thank you for coming out today as we stand united for the protection of our constitutional rights to carry and possess firearms. A right that is recent as of 2010 was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court, when they officially established that the Second Amendment protects an individual's rights to possess firearms and to use the firearm for lawful purposes such as self-defense. In addition, the court ruled that the Second Amendment limits state and local governments to the same extent that it limits, and it prohibits the federal government from infringing on their Second Amendment rights. You know, it appears to me that President Barack Hussein Obama and Governor Andrew Cuomo may have missed that ruling somewhere. They must have been sleeping or playing golf. You know, it gets me at how hypocritical many of our elected officials, such as Assemblyman Harry Bronson and State Senator Ted O'Brien, are, as they claim that they bring change to Albany when they themselves fail to represent all the people. You know, I grew up in one of the poorest parts of the city of Rochester, right in the middle of what many refer to as the ghetto, a part of Monroe County where crime has become the norm and education, or the lack of education, has been acceptable. I'll tell you, I am a high school dropout. I am a teen parent, and I hung on these streets here in Rochester, but guess what? Because faith, morality, and family values were allowed and taught in my home, and many of the community leaders of those days, I knew not to pick up a gun, or any weapon for that matter, to hurt someone. You know what gets me, what just burns me, is that nearly 25 years later, now mind you, this city, as well as our assembly, has been under Democratic control for nearly 40 years. 25 years later, and after a whole bunch of new laws have been passed, many within our society are still dealing with the exact issues that defeated many of my elementary cohorts. Issues such as broken homes, failing schools, and useless posers that pretend to be community leaders when they just ignore our communities. They dictate instead of represent. I have to ask though, are they really interested in equality? Recently, Assemblyman Felix Ortiz introduced legislation that, if passed, would require every gun owner to maintain $1 million insurance policy. You mentioned that. But get this though. He says, this bill is designated to encourage responsible ownership of firearms and to reduce accidental shootings. Yeah, you know, I figured that'd make you chuckle. I'll tell you, if that wasn't silly enough, he goes on to say, the insurance policy will provide innocent victims of firearm incidents compensation for the medical care for their injuries and recoveries. You know, what's really funny though is that he makes an attempt to equate his bill to having homeowners and vehicle insurance. I think what Mr. Ortiz fails to understand is that home ownership and having a car is not a constitutional right, it's an earned right. It's a right and privilege that all of us that work day in and day out bust our butts to get. You know, for those that think that piece of legislation will make a difference and will make our community safer, they live in La La Land. They're in fantasy world. We all must realize that this only penalizes us, those of us who follow the law. Criminals don't care about registering them guns. Why would they? As a matter of fact, most of those guns are what? Illegal, exactly. You know, if we say that loud enough, maybe the governor, maybe President Barack Hussein Obama will hear us. Now, I want you all to imagine this. Your weapon is stolen. It's used in an armed robbery where someone was murdered or severely injured. Or you are forced to protect yourself and your family but the attacker is injured. Under this law, the registered gun owner is fully financially responsible to that criminal. That means that criminal, you as the gun owner, although he robbed you and you defended yourself or they stole your gun, they just made $1 million. Doesn't make sense. You know, it sounds like an enticement to me.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
You know, but yet the president and the governor say they want reasonable gun control laws that do not infringe in the Second Amendment. Listen,
double talk.
If there's any educators out here, I encourage you to write both the president and the governor and educate them on what reasonable really means.
Yeah.
Again, their dictionary, I don't think it was English, but I'm sure for one of them it probably wasn't. Gun laws institutionalize inequality. Again, gun laws institutionalize inequality. You know, just so you know, initially these laws were used to keep guns out of the hands of the freed slaves so that the Democrat Party could keep the black man down. As a matter of fact, these laws were enforced by the white hooded Democrats of the KKK.
Amen.
You know, requirements to buy a $3,000 a year insurance policy in order to own a gun will make the poor man even less equal to the man that can afford that. And I'll tell you, I'm one of those poor men because I sure can afford $3,000 a year so that I can make a criminal a millionaire.
I hate to interrupt again, but we really need to go to another break.
Did you know high-quality versions of all episodes of Freedom Rocks are available on DVD? Each DVD contains 3 episodes for just $15. We also have specials that aren't on RCTV or YouTube. You can find links to all of our DVDs on the Freedom Rocks website, freedomrocks.cybermansoftware.com.
Welcome back to Freedom Rocks. As always, I'd like to remind you that this is a cable access program. That means we don't get Nielsen ratings. So we don't know you're watching unless you tell us you're watching, which you can do by swinging by this website at the bottom of your screen, Freedom Rocks, that's freedomrocks.cybermansoftware.com. We now return to a protest over the so-called New York SAFE Act.
Good afternoon, Patriots! Everybody hear me? Okay. My name's Jim Burrows. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a politician. I'm a father, a patriot, United States Marine, and a Mason. In that order. There are many things I want to leave for my children. A fight for their freedom is not one of them. I brought them into this world, and I feel that's a responsibility for me to make that fight, and I will. I joined the Marine Corps in 2001. I was in the recruiter's office on September 12th, right after our attack on New York.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you. I shipped off to boot camp 33 days later because I was so motivated to go get in that fight and support our country. The oath of service I took was not just words, and it doesn't have a shelf life. What's going on in the state is wrong. The total disrespect for the people of this state and the total arrogance of our government should concern everybody, whether you own a weapon or not.
Amen.
Sooner or later, they will get to something that you care about. It's just a matter of time. I spoke to people who say that they're on the fence with law enforcement officials who are going to enforce this law. You cannot believe that propaganda. The people who say they're going to enforce this law are just as guilty as the people who wrote it and voted yes for it. There's a lot of us that think that the Rochester police chief is wrong for standing up for this law and getting ready to enforce it. I have a petition for anybody that wants to sign it calling for his resignation. I don't know where it'll get us, but it's going to get us united, and it's a start. I don't know where this fight is going to take us, but I'm willing to go until the very end. And I hope the rest of the Patriots are too. They say militias are outlawed in New York State. I don't care. I'm also organizing an upstate militia. Not to overthrow our government, but to educate, train, and prepare to defend ourselves if the time ever arises. Hopefully it doesn't, but we need to be ready for it.
Amen.
I'm going to continue to live by the oath that I took. I am going to stand up for our Constitution and protect it from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. We need to stand tall, Patriots, and we need to stand together.
Okay, now, I assume everybody knows what this is?
Yes. Our
Did he-
state flag.
You want to say that again?
Our state flag.
The New York State flag. Well, you know what? Here's what I think of New York State.
I feel compelled to advise you that if you're going to try this at home, please be very careful.
That's the New York State flag representing what they're doing to our rights. Hear, hear. That is what I think of New York State.
Good afternoon, Patriots. My name is Maddie Sarfentine, and I'm happy to be here with you today. We should be proud. The entire country is taking notice of how we, as citizens of New York, are responding to this attack on our Second Amendment constitutional rights. The stand that we have taken against this tyrannical governor and his puppets in the legislature has sent a loud message that New York Patriots are a force to be reckoned with. I get so excited every time I go on the New York Resolutions website and Facebook page. If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. As of now, over 25 counties throughout New York State have passed resolutions. And in the next few weeks, at least 20 more will be addressing it, including Monroe, Genesee, and Ontario. Even townships are getting involved. It is vital that people speak up and contact their legislators and let them know that we want them to join the ranks of other counties and towns who are opposed to New York's unsafe act. Amen. Banning guns will never solve this problem. This is not a gun problem. The violence that we see in the cities and throughout the country is a multifaceted issue and needs to be addressed as such. Poverty, education, and family values are just some of the areas at the heart of this issue.
Amen.
We have plenty of gun laws on the books right now that are not enforced. New York State needs to start there instead of attacking the law-abiding, hard-working, tax-paying citizens of this state. We do not need gun control. We need crime control. While it is important for all patriots to speak up, I would like to speak directly to the women patriots out there today. I know there are a lot of us. Let me tell you why it is particularly important for our voices to be heard. The politicians, anti-gun lobbies, and media are taking advantages of opportunities citizens, we are tired of having our constitutional rights threatened. We believe in the right to own and bear arms. We are not criminals.
Yes.
I shared my message with the County of Orleans legislators. I think that aside from the points I made, the fact that I was a woman speaking out on this issue made an impression upon them. I am proud to say that on February 13th, Orleans County passed a resolution against the New York SAFE Act. Another patriotic woman, Gia Arnold, organized this rally today. Thank you, Gia. As women, we need to help break the stereotype. We need to all speak out and protect our rights, not only for ourselves, but for our children. We are blessed to live in this country. It is now our turn to join the fight to keep our freedom and preserve it for generations to come. Thank you.
I hope you found that protest entertaining and informative. If you'd like to be on Freedom Rocks, if you support a libertarian position on an issue, or if you oppose a libertarian position and would like to debate us, let us know by contacting us through the show website, Freedom Rocks, that's freedom, ROCS, .cybermansoftware.com. And we'll see you next week.